Hey, gorgeous! Welcome to the Business Mindset Podcast with Holly Wharton, which combines powerful strategies on how to upgrade your business mindset, along with practical business tips to grow your business. This podcast features solo shows with Holly and also interviews with inspiring women entrepreneurs from around the world. Thank you so much for joining us today. And now, here's your host, Holly Wharton.
Hello and welcome to the Business Mindset Podcast, episode 190. This is your host, Holly Wharton, and I'm back with another co-hosted episode with the fabulous Joe Casey. Today we're going to talk about messaging, business messaging. What is your business message and why do you need one? In this episode, we hope to demystify messaging so you can understand why it's so important and how to get clear on yours. What are you going to learn in this episode? We're going to talk about what a business message actually is, why your business needs a message, how you get a business message, all the little bits and pieces that make up a business message, whether or not to include your views on politics and other hot topics in your message, how to make your message clear so that people actually understand it, why you may need to get help in clarifying your message, whether or not your business message has to be totally unique to you, and what to do in the meantime while you're still getting clear on your message. So we're going to talk about all these things, and we're hoping to, like I said, demystify the whole concept of business messaging, because it sounds like one of those like fancy marketing speak things, but it's super basic, super practical, and it's something that's really an important element of your business. So hope you find this episode interesting and useful, and I'll hand you over to the episode right now. Enjoy. Hello, this is Holly Wharton and Joe Casey, and we're back with another co-hosted episode. Today, we're going to be talking about business messaging. What is it, and why is it so important for your business? Why do you need a business message? How do you get one? And most importantly, how do you make it clear so that you can attract the best clients for you and your business? We're going to be talking about whether or not your business message has to be absolutely 100% totally unique to you, and if not, what does that mean? And we're also going to be talking about what to do in the meantime while you're still figuring out your business message, because that's something that can take time to put together and clarify and get it ready to share with the world. So I hope you find this episode really interesting. I think this is something that is confusing to a lot of people. So this is something that we're both really excited about, and we're hoping to demystify the concept of messaging for our listeners. So hope you find this useful, and we're going to get on with things. So hello, Joe. How are you?
I'm good. Should we just mention that we have had the worst karma of any podcasters ever? This is literally our fifth attempt at doing the intro. So we're burning sage around the place, and we're hoping that this is all going to work. We've had phone calls, we've had things breaking, we've had things not recording, we've had dogs barking, we've had all kinds. So I am really excited about this because I think that messaging is one of those, it's something that is so vital to a successful, sustainable business, and yet can be the most confusing thing for people. And so I'm really keen to kind of dive in on this because I just think it's so important. And there's a real kind of confusion out there about what it is and how do you find your message and how do you decide it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people get confused because it sounds like fancy marketing speak, but really it's something that we all have down at the core. It's just a matter of putting words to it and making it clear.
Yeah.
So why don't we start out by talking about what is a message? I know you have a really clear way of explaining this, so why don't you get started?
So it's two things. It's what is it that you actually do? So it's like, it's very essence. It's, do people understand what you will give them in exchange for their money? And I know that sounds kind of a bit kind of obvious, but so for example, for if you're a coach or if you're a healer, very often we will talk about our profession or our methodology, but people don't necessarily understand what that is. So when I first started out coaching, going back 16 years ago now, I would say to people, I'm a life coach, and they would go, what's that then? And so I'd have to break it down. And, this is a conversation that I have with people all the time, because I work with, life coaches and health coaches and healers and things. And this is something that still comes up. We know what we mean. And the general population have an idea of what that is, but they don't quite understand why you would pay somebody and what they would get in exchange for it. So it has to be really clear. It's a bit like saying, I have a shop. And people go, oh, great, what do you sell in your shop? All kinds of things. Okay, I'm just going to keep my wallet in my pocket for now because, so it needs to be really clear what it is that people get in exchange for the money.
Yeah, go ahead. Go on.
No. So the other thing is then what do you stand for in the world that makes you unique? Because once people understand, oh, okay, I'm going to go to Holly because she will help me to clear my mindset blocks. It's, well, why would I go to Holly Wharton rather than go to, a dozen other experts in mindset? What is it that makes Holly unique? And in that way, you get to stand out in the marketplace. And then people can self-select. They can decide, oh, I really like what Holly Wharton is doing, or, oh, no, I really don't like. And, I'm sorry for using you as an example, Holly, because I'm sure there's nobody out there who couldn't like you. But we're afraid quite often of taking a stand for something and saying, this is what I do, this is what I don't do, this is how I do it, this is what I don't do, this is what I believe, this is what I don't believe, because we're worried that we'll turn some people off, and therefore we keep it kind of a little bit bland, and so we're not repelling anybody, we're not having anybody kind of go, oh no, that's not for me, but at the same time we're not having people going, oh yes, that's definitely for me. And so I think that's one of the other things. It's what is your message, and what do you take a stand on? What makes you unique? And and that's something that you have done really well over the years, Holly, is being able to kind of say, this is me, this is what I do. There are all these other people who do these other things, but this is my philosophy, this is how I do it, this is my approach, and so people can self-select. And so I think that's another really important part of the message. So it's, people have to know what is it that they will get in exchange for their money, and what is it about you that makes you unique, so they can decide whether you're the person for them.
And I think also your big why kind of comes into it as well, because if people know why you're doing what you're doing, and if that's kind of a very personal thing to you, that also helps you stand out and makes you different, and people will either resonate with that or not.
Absolutely. One of the challenges for us is that when you have a service-based business, so something that depends on you delivering a service, not having a team of people, not selling widgets or aprons or frying pans, or something people go, oh, that's a really good frying pan, I know what that will do, but you're selling yourself effectively. And so people need to be able to see you. And that is really challenging. And so, yes, if you can share things like, why am I on fire about this? Why is this so important to me? Why do I do this work? If you can share things like, this is what I believe, these are my values, this is what I don't believe, it allows people to get to know you and to make those decisions about whether you're the person for them. The kind of the other side of that then is, it allows people to get to know you, and that can feel very vulnerable and very exposed, particularly for us women. But because we have a service-based business that's based on us, we need to show people who we are in order to help them decide whether to hire us or not. And that's just the reality of it, and that can be challenging. So that's another kind of added challenge that goes into this whole messaging piece.
I think it's that willingness to step up, be seen for who we are, because there's so many coaches out there. There's so many EFT practitioners out there. There's so many, NLP practitioners. There's so many people doing these things out there. What is it about you that makes you different and that makes you a good fit or not a good fit for me or anyone else? And I think that can be really, really scary. As you said before, people, it can feel safe to kind of water down the message and be neutral and be beige and just kind of fit in. But that is exactly what you don't want to be doing. You want to be standing out, and you want to be standing out with your message so that people know who you are and whether or not you're a good fit.
Yeah. And it's scary. I will not deny it. It's scary because you're letting people know who you are. Then there's a chance, a very good chance, that some people are going to go, well, you're not for me. And, that can be that can hurt sometimes, or it can be vulnerable, or, you know, we open ourselves up to criticism. And, you know, so you do need to develop a bit of a tougher skin, or, you know, and I know that for me, this has been a real evolution. It's one that's still ongoing. I know that for you, Holly, it's evolved over the years. But it's tough, but it's absolutely vital. If people don't know who you are, then they can't make that decision as to, you know, are they the person for me?
And I think that's interesting what you said about people kind of self-selecting out or not working with you. That's so important. Even if we can feel, you know, sometimes that bit of rejection, I think we've all worked with at least one client that wasn't a good fit. At some level, when we decided to work with them, we knew it wasn't a good fit, but we thought, no, I can help this person. I'm going to do it anyway. And then you did work with the person, and then it was like, oh, God, why did I do that? I knew at some level that it wasn't right. So that is such an important thing to kind of avoid, so you don't have to deal with that again in your business. And that's why that kind of rejection, whether it's you opting out of working with the client or the client opting out of working with you because for whatever reason you're not a good fit, that's so important to avoid those kind of not so great coaching relationships.
Absolutely, yeah. And even things like, I mean, so a friend of mine who's also a coach, so one of the big debates that's kind of going on, I think, in businesses across the US and in Europe, is how much should your politics, for example, come into your business? So we're recording this the week of the Super Bowl, and there's been lots and lots of debates about, you know, some companies took real stands which were interpreted as being for Trump or against President Trump. And so one of my friends is another coach, and she had somebody fire her because she was very open about the fact that she was pro-choice. And her client was pro-life and said, I cannot possibly work with you. And you know, once she kind of got over the upset of it, she kind of thought, well, do you know, I think it's a shame that it kind of got to that point and we couldn't have had a conversation. But do you know what? If that person was quite angry about the fact that she didn't know this thing about my friend, first of all. And it was a really icky conversation. Whereas ultimately my friend kind of said, do you know what? It probably is best that we don't work together. I think there were these things that were going to come up and we're going to clash. I think there's also something right now about, you know, what do you want to take a stand on? There are some big important issues going on in the world. And as healers, as coaches, we can't just kind of go, oh, love and light, and pretend that those things don't exist. And I also think that our audiences don't necessarily want us to pretend that they don't exist. So I think all of this is important. I'm not saying I have the answers. I'm not saying you have to do it one way or the other. But I think all of this is really important because the conversation online changes all the time. And if you're just doing the kind of, you know, bland, beige stuff, then you're going to get lost in the noise. And you know, you're not going to stand out, and people are going to kind of go, oh, you know, I really hate that person, I really like that person, and they're a bit kind of so I'm probably going to go with the person I really, really like. Yeah, and I think a lot of the big name people who are very vocal about their opinions, I'm thinking Leonie Dawson, Kat Laturzo, I have seen them share people who have, you know, said, I'm unsubscribing, I'm not following you anymore because you said this, this, and this. And they're like, great, unsubscribe, you know, opt out. That's fantastic. You know, that's totally okay. And I hope, I mean, it's maybe getting slightly off topic, but I don't think so. I hope that part of what then happens is things are so polarized in terms of politics right now. Just to address what makes me kind of go, oh. And I really hope that I can still hold in my head, oh, they are really good at what they do as part of their job. But I disagree with their politics, I disagree with their values, but they're still really good at what they do. Yeah. And I think we need to be holding examples in our heads when we don't just 100% dismiss somebody because of their politics, because of we can see more of the whole person. And I think by you showing who you are as a whole person, maybe, I'm not saying this will happen anytime soon, but maybe we can start to have some more nuanced conversations. So maybe rather than it being quite so automatically polarizing, I understand that's what's happening at the moment, but we can start to actually, say, oh, I didn't know Leonie Dawson felt that way. But, I followed her for years and I really do like her. And right now I'm really mad at her because,
whatever.
Yeah, but maybe with a bit of distance and a bit of hindsight, when we're not in the red hot heat of this kind of real intense political moment, we could look back on that and kind of say, or people can look back on that and kind of say, but for the first couple of years while I was following her, she was really super helpful. Because I know that there were people that I followed when and by the way, I think most people know where my politics line, but I am kind of aligned with Leonie Dawson and her stance on things. But there are people that I followed early on online who were right for me at the time, and then I moved on from them, and that too evolves and the conversation evolves. But the point is, if you don't show who you are to people, then you are just going to get lost, especially now, I think.
Yeah, I definitely agree. So about business messages, how do you get one? So we've talked about it has to do with what do you stand for, how do you help people, your values, your beliefs, your why, politics, maybe not. But how do you put that all together into a message that's clear enough for other people to understand it?
Well, the first thing is don't expect to get it straight out the gate. This is really hard. This is probably one of the most difficult things that you will do in your business, and yet it is the foundational piece. So I know for me, my message has evolved so much and is still evolving.
Yeah.
So, if you can get it to the point where you're maybe 60% there, you've got something that you kind of think, yeah, this is showing more of who I am. This is, there's people can see some of my personality. I'm sharing some of my kind of philosophy and some of my beliefs. That's a great place to start. One of my coaches likened it to, it's like you pull at the loose threads and you start following those threads and see where they lead you. So it's not like you necessarily come straight to the point of, oh, I'm a healer who wants to help radical women to be all that they can be in the world whilst overcoming their eating disorder. Or, it's something really, really specific. It's that you start to kind of think, okay, so what's my experience? What's my why? Why am I so passionate about doing this work? What is the root of that? What is the story around that? And a great place to start with that is Simon Sinek's work. Start with why. So what is my kind of the root of why I do my work in the world? If I wasn't getting paid for this, why would it still be so important for me to do something like this? What do I think is important? What would I take a stand for? A great question that my friend Maggie Sterner always asks is, what will I not allow to happen on my watch? So you think, what are you really passionate about, and what if you were queen for a day or president for the day or whatever, what would you kind of go, no more, that is not going to happen, not one more person is going to be, whatever that might be.
Excellent.
So what are those things that are really important that you take a stand for? What are those things that really irritate you? And I don't mean just kind of, they get my nerves a bit, Simon Cowell with his pants or something like that, but really like, no, I can't bear it when people do that. Or, so what do you have strong feelings about, first of all? And then start unpicking kind of, well, why is that? And where does that fit in with values? Because I think understanding our values and what's important to us is really essential to this element of, what's my message? What am I taking a stand for in the world?
Exactly. And I think as you're putting these ideas together, these are the kinds of things that you can be blogging about, you can be talking about in your videos for your YouTube channel, you can be podcasting about. All of your content, these things can be coming up.
Yes. So it's not like you have to, your message has to be totally summed up in just one neat little sentence, your elevator speech. So I think it's more about, you need to be able to describe succinctly what it is that you do with some context around it, but everything else that you put out gives that wraparound context. So
it's kind of like the padding around the elevator speech.
Exactly. So that is your podcast, that is your videos, that is your blog posts, that's your social media updates, that's the things that you share on Facebook. that, you know, is even things like the images that you use on your website and your colours and things like that. All of that provides the context for your message.
Yeah. And I think that's something that, as we've said, it evolves over time. And it can take time to really get clear on this as we're kind of sharing, creating content, that kind of thing. So what can people do in the meantime as they're getting clear on this message? Is it just a matter of just kind of keep on putting stuff out there until it kind of solidifies into something that's clear? Or what should people be doing who aren't clear on their message?
So I think the very, very first thing that you need to do is decide what it is that people are paying you for. I mean, that is 101. That is essential. If people are going, you know, if you're saying, oh, I'm a Psych K practitioner. Sorry, I'm using you again. And people go, what's that then? Then you need to be able to explain what it is. Yeah. Which, you know, by the way, Holly, you do beautifully. And so that's 101. That's the absolutely fundamental thing. The next kind of layer of it is that you know, what do I take a stand for? What makes me unique? There's a number of things to look at. I think your story, your why is really important. So, you know, Simon Sinek's work about, you know, the power of why. I definitely recommend his TED Talk and his book. He also has a whole course which helps you kind of work with your why, uncovering your why. Do a values assessment. So, you know, what is important to you? What do you value? You know, what would you fight for, argue for, die for? There is something about the unique position that you hold at the intersection of a number of things, by which I mean, so there's a concept called owneliness, which there's a writer called Nicola Merchant, who also has a TED Talk, which is really good. And she basically calls owneliness is the place where you stand, which is unique in the world or the universe. You know, it's nobody has the same exact experiences, outlook, values, skill sets, understanding, personality as you. Not in that unique combination. There's nobody else like you. And so the more that you can make yourself aware and start digging into, well, what are those elements? What are my skills? What is my experience? What is my background and my values? What is important to me? What do I want to be different in the world? And pulling all of those things together, almost like the patchwork quilt that is you, that kind of gives you the idea of what are the threads to follow. I honestly, for me, it's been a combination of exercises like that, but also working with somebody else who can help you pull that out, because I do think that you could get so close to it that you can't see the forest for the trees. And so having somebody else who can help take a more kind of helicopter view of all of those things is really, really valuable. And I've done that at every stage of my business, right from when I was first starting out, where I remember being on a workshop about how to start your own training business as it was back then. And me kind of going, oh, and I do this and I do that, and that works really well. And somebody said to me, oh, you're a resilience expert. And it was so obvious that yes, I was, but I wouldn't have seen that in 100 years. So it took somebody else to see that. And again, I've worked with coaches over the years who've coached me to be able to pull that out. And again, we always say this. I know we would say this because we are coaches. This is part of the work that we do with people. But that is honestly true. I think you can do the groundwork for yourself, but quite often you'll need somebody else who has a bit more distance from it, who can see all the different elements and how they coalesce and come together.
Yeah, I think that's really, really important, because we're in our heads all day. We're in our business all day. It's so important to get help with this, to kind of get the language and the wording and the kind of the key words. So resilience, that's such a thing that, you know, I can totally understand how you didn't come up with that on your own. And for me, I mean, it took me forever to kind of figure out like business mindset and the blocks and the fears. It's so obvious now, but it was like when I first started doing this work, I didn't have those kind of key words and I didn't have that language, and it took time to put that together, but it took help from other people as well to get clarity on that so that I could clearly express to other people, this is what I do.
Yeah, it is a tricky one when you're so close to it yourself, but there's an awful lot of the groundwork that you can do.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we can link in the show notes to. And I actually have a worksheet that I use with clients who are right at the beginning. I can share that in the show notes as well.
Great.
Called "It's All About You, Baby."
Oh, I like that. I like that. So one other thing, I mean, you've kind of touched on this before when you're talking about the onlyness, but does your message have to be totally unique to you, or can it overlap with other people? I mean,
Yes,
obviously,
no.
yeah.
So if you really do this right, the whole kind of what do you take a stand for in the world, then it will by definition be unique because you are unique. So that part of it, yes, that is going to be unique. The other part of it, though, no. So within business, I think there's a mistake that we can fall into, in that my services have to be so unique they can't be anything that anybody else has done. That's the way I'll stand out. But the way of testing out whether your business is going to be viable is, are there other people selling this shit? Mm-hmm. Or selling this stuff, sorry, bleep that. Are there other people who are, providing coaching for people around mindset blocks? Mm-hmm. Because if there are other people doing it, then you know there's a market for it. You know that there are already people out in the world who are willing to pay for this. Mm-hmm. And that is one of the very first and easiest indicators of whether this business idea is viable. Mm. If there is nobody else doing what you are doing, it's for one of two reasons. Either you are a total futurist and you have come up with something that nobody has realized they need yet, which is possible, but very often the futurists aren't the people who bring things to market. Mm. So if your idea is so unique, quite often it can take a while for the market, the people who to catch up. People don't even realize they need what you're offering yet. Or if there's nobody else doing it, but you think, well, this isn't that unique, then there's probably a reason that no one's been able to make money out of it, and that there's no demand for it.
Yeah, and so then you have to start the whole process of educating people why they need what you have to offer. I mean, I came up with that when I was doing my social media for authors business. I had set number of authors that I would work with on a regular basis who had the money, had the experience. They knew they needed help with this. They knew the importance of it. But then there were all these other kind of usually newer authors that just didn't understand why they needed to invest in their business and why self-publishing your books is like a business. They were creatives. They were authors. They didn't see themselves as business owners. So I ended up kind of letting go of that business and moving on because it just wasn't working. It was too much effort to be educating people that they needed what I had to offer, or at least figure out how to do it on their own. And I remember I'd gotten to the point where I was creating this whole online course to basically educate people why they needed to see themselves as, oh my God. And then I was kind of putting the PowerPoints together and putting everything together, and it was really exciting. But then I thought, what the heck am I doing? I'm like going through this massive project to teach people to change their mindset from I'm a creative to I'm a creative and I need to sell the stuff that I create. So sometimes it's just too much effort to educate people about why they need that. And so you need to kind of stop and realize, is this worth it? Is it not worth it? Mm-hmm. And then either move on or just stick with it. So, yeah.
And I know whenever I hear arguments like this, there's a bit of me kind of goes, yeah, but where do the innovators come from? I think the innovators will still happen. But if you want to build a business, I'm not saying don't have the most unique, innovative ideas. That's fine. But you've also got to balance that with, is this marketable? There are so many patents, recorded each and every year. Mm-hmm. With the US Patent Office and the European Office, and those inventions still happen, but very few of them actually get to the point where you're making money. Now, if you want to be an inventor, then by all means go be an inventor. But if you want to have a sustainable business, then choose something that you know that there's a proven market for. And the other thing that I see that comes up with this is it can be fear dressed up in the resistance of, no, but what I offer is totally unique. Mm-hmm. Therefore, nobody just understands it, rather than, maybe people don't understand it because they don't want it, and maybe if you just tweaked it, then it would be successful. But then we're into a different conversation.
Yeah. Or tweak how you talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Change the language you're using to describe what you're doing. Yeah. Make it super clear.
Yeah. Yeah, if you can explain it to a 7-year-old in the way that they understand it, then you're onto something. So, rather than saying, again, I'll use coaching as an example, because this was the one that I would go to all these networking meetings and stand up and kind of go, well, I'm a coach and I can help you to achieve your goals far faster than you would be able to on your own. And people would just be looking, that's nice. But, if you can then explain it in a way that is, well, I'm a coach, and everything that you're wanting to do right now that you're struggling to do, I'm going to help you to just cut through that, to work out what exactly it is that you want. And the more specific you can make it, even more compelling that's going to be. So, I'm going to help you to feel great about your body without ever having to go on another diet again. I'm going to help you to feel like you are connected to your kids and to your partner. It's very specific. You can talk very specifically. I'm going to help you feel like you're a nicer mum. If you can talk about it in those terms, that's very different from saying, I'm a parenting coach who helps people to reconnect with their loved ones or something. The more specific you can make it, the simpler the language, it's going to be so much easier. You help people to overcome their mindset blocks so they can achieve the things they want to do in their business.
And I think I have found it really useful when getting clear on this and writing copy for my website to go through kind of the intake forms and the questionnaires that I use for clients to see what specific words and language they're using and what are the biggest results they want to get from working with me. And then I look at what results did they get, because sometimes what they come to the first session with is not what we end up working on because other stuff comes up. But I kind of compare those things and I pick those specific examples, and that really, really helps me to get clear on exactly what the heck it is that I do with people.
Yeah, exactly. And go through things like, testimonials at the end of the process. What was different? What was different from before we started working together to now? What can you do differently? How do you feel differently? And get really specific on stuff like that. And if people are saying, well, actually, it's this, and that's coming out as consistently, then you kind of think, oh, right. So there's another thread for you to start pulling at.
Well, I feel like we've done a pretty good job of demystifying the message. How are you feeling about that?
Yeah, I hope so.
As usual, if anyone has any questions, feel free to get in touch. Holly at hollywharton.com, Joe at joecasey.com, or join us in our Facebook groups. So I have the Coaches Collective on Facebook, and if you go to my website and just click on the collective, it will give you all of the details there. Yeah, and I've got the Business Mindset Alchemist, where we deconstruct our business mindset and talk about mindset stuff. If you go to hollywharton.com/groups, then that will redirect you to the Facebook group. Thank you for listening, and remember to visit hollywharton.com/190 for the show notes on this episode. Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening to the Business Mindset Podcast with your host, Holly Wharton. You can find more information about today's episode, including links for topics that were discussed at hollywharton.com. And if you enjoyed this episode, please remember to head over to iTunes and leave a quick review of this podcast. It just takes a minute. Thank you.